Well, it is that time of the week for the first time in 2018 for Sterlo's wrap-up. Yes, we are back for a year bigger and better than ever than on the Wide World of Sports website and beyond as well. Great to have the man himself, Peter Sterling, alongside.
Lovely to see you, James. Missed you during the off-season.
Right back at you.
That much.
Yeah, just a little bit. Just a little bit. It's great to be back in the studio and talking about footy. I mean, you look back on these 8 matches we had over the weekend, big crowds and surprise results. Fantastic stuff.
Yeah, wonderful. We had a Golden Point game. It was comeback Sunday. Teams trailing by 14 and 18 got up to win those matches. Probably the big thing out of the weekend, James, and I would think it's unprecedented. The bottom 4 teams from last year at the end of the 26 rounds all had a win in week 1 of 2018. So we expect upsets, but maybe not to that magnitude.
It's going to be a tight competition from what we've seen, at least in the opening weekend. Before we get into each game, the referees, in the off-season, a lot of talk about a few things they were going to be concentrating on. Do you give them the tick of approval from what you've seen already?
I did. The first one was the play the ball area in regards to players putting their foot on the football and actually playing it. That was policed fairly strongly during the trials. The question was, will it continue on into the competition? I thought the players looked really well versed. I think that the coaches have made it clear, look, we can't be giving away possession and penalties if you don't touch a football. So it slowed the ruck down just that little bit, but I don't think that was a bad thing. I probably saw maybe just into double figures penalties awarded for that offence. I thought it was a positive thing, and I hope it is something that they continue on through the course of the season. The other area that I want to point out, one of the real sticking points in our game last year was teams giving away penalties, defensive penalties on their own line. It was terrible, and we started to sort of say, got to sin bin this. It's a blight on the game. Well, in the Newcastle-Manly game, we saw advantage played by the referee on a couple of occasions. Now, Newcastle are offside here. The referee knows that. But instead of blowing the whistle straight away, he allows play on. Aquila Uarte nearly scores in the corner, only denied by Kalen Ponga. But then we come back, and the penalty is awarded. Later in the game, the same thing applies this time for Newcastle, with Nathan Ross almost scoring in the corner. Again, the whistle could have been blown there, which stops the game. It's an interruption we don't need. Players love advantage when it's applied. They don't want to see something snuffed out early when they thought there's an opportunity. That was really good refereeing, and I hope it's something, again, we continue to see, because the more we can stamp out that giving away penalties on the own line, the better for the game. But playing advantage is a good way to deal with it to a degree.
Consistency is key. Hey, let's head back to Thursday night. Jubilee Oval, Cogra, great scenes, big crowd, 34-12, the Dragons beating the Broncos. They're off to a flyer, and it was a former Bronco, the star of the match, Ben Hunt, man of the match. A great performance and looked really comfortable alongside Gareth Widdop.
May have come into this weekend with the most pressure on his shoulders, although that's probably arguable when you consider Mitchell Pearce going up to Newcastle. But Ben Hunt was outstanding in a really good Dragons performance. 5 tries to 2, and I think that was a fair indication of the game. They were that superior, and the combination of Hunt and Widdop was an absolute feature. Always felt that they would complement each other. He's a specialist halfback, quality number 7 who's played at the highest levels, and it's an area that St George Illawarra have lacked. Even Ben Hornby, when they won the competition 6 years ago, he was a makeshift halfback. So Ben Hunt coming in was always going to fill the role, but he got great support. I thought the front row rotation was excellent. James Graham also, his first game at the new club. Leeson Armau off the bench was very good. Paul Vaughan also. So the platform was set for the 7 and the 6, but they orchestrated things very nicely.
They've got to back it up against Cronulla at Shark Park on Thursday night. It was a disappointing Broncos side. Did they flatter the Dragons a bit? Are you expecting them to be able to back up that win?
I don't know whether they flattered, because I think there's plenty of improvement still in the Dragons based on what we saw. I was disappointed in Brisbane, and I think there are some problems there. Ben Hunt was always going to be missed. I don't think that they quite knew how much until this kind of performance, because I'm not sure about Nikorima and Nikorima and Anthony Milford in the halves. They had Benji there as well last year as a bit of a stopgap and a safety net. Their kicking game looks ordinary. Darius Boyd, I don't think that hamstring is 100%, so it's kind of restricting how much he can come and help. And they've lost a little bit of power up front also. Guys like Herman Esiesi leaving the club. There's a few question marks over Brisbane, and even more so after their opening performance.
Look, we saw some highlights there from the Newcastle Manly match. 19-18 went to Golden Point, and it was another number 7 in a winning team who was the focal point from this, not only just for the winning field goal, but a starring performance throughout it. Mitchell Pearce against the team that he was expected to sign with when leaving the Roosters, Pete.
It was perfect, wasn't it? For Newcastle fans especially, it was perfect. They want to come and they want to watch a football team that digs in, are competitive, but also can win games. This is a match last year, James, they would have lost. In contention, as they were so often, but just didn't have the polish and the experience to get the job done, and Mitchell Pearce provided that. But so did other players. Guys like Jacob Lilliman are going to be important. Kalen Ponga was outstanding. We saw him score the first try, a constant headache. Defensively, he was outstanding. But Newcastle, they never went away. They kept the crowd involved in this. And to get it to Golden Point for this strike, and it was a beauty from Mitchell Pearce. I thought he'd actually kicked one a little bit earlier in extra time, but he nailed that one. And look at the reaction there of not only the players, but the crowd. A really positive start for the Newcastle Knights in so many different ways. And for Mitchell Pearce, what a confidence booster for everybody. He was always going to be well received. He's a brave player. He's a number 7 who'll put his body on the line. And when players see that and the crowd sees that, they embrace it.
Is it too soon to say they're finals contenders? Would that be getting ahead of themselves for Knights fans?
Oh, look, I think they've been a bit overhyped, Newcastle. We all want them to do well, and Nathan Brown has done a fantastic job, and we want to see them come up the ladder. But it's a long haul from the very bottom, which is where they've come, and even the improvements they made last year. If they could play finals football, that would be huge. The very fact that we're talking about them being a chance of doing so shows how far they've come in a short period of time.
Well, it was a 1-point ball game in Newcastle. In Townsville, a 6-point ball game, 20 points to 14. Jonathan Thurston's 300, celebrated in style, and there was added pressure on him when Michael Morgan was ruled out late. Great scenes there, and to cap it off with a hard-fought win against the Cronulla Sharks, he just keeps on knocking off those accolades as the career goes on.
Well, only the 30th player to rack up 300 games when you consider how long the history of our game is. That's rarefied air. He said it was a difficult week because there was, a lot of talk around it. He just wanted to prepare for the game. It was easy to forget that we hadn't seen him since Origin football. So he'd been out a long time, but it was just like he stepped back in. It was like getting back on a bike, and he steered them around the park. Goal kicking was terrible. That's one area they'll need to improve. Probably made the scoreline a little bit closer than it could have been because he only kicked the 2 goals out of a swag of attempts. But a really nice performance from North Queensland. Not only no Michael Morgan, but also no Lachlan Coote. Hampton was really good at the back. Tamara Martin came in, as he's done on a couple of occasions. Looks classy in the halves. But it was a night for JT, and deservedly so. And I think Andrew Johns made this statement after this game that if Jonathan Thurston played for the opposition this night, Cronulla would have won. And that's about as big a rap as you can get.
For the Sharks, they've got, as we mentioned, the Dragons Thursday night. Sione Katoa with the broken jaw. Valentine Holmes' disappointing night under the ball at fullback. Are you expecting him to go to the wing? And if so, who goes to fullback, Moylan or Dugan?
Look, I don't think it will happen in the short term. I think Shane Flanagan, the coach, showed last year that he's keen for Valentine Holmes to play at fullback. He played the majority of his games in the number 1 jersey at club level last year. But the best performances we've seen from Valentine Holmes have been on the wing. They've got some choices there. Jack Bird and Jared Beale have left the club, so there's maybe not so much choice in regards to who to bring in. But Dugan, I think, is best at fullback. I don't think that will happen for a while, if it does at all. Moylan, give him time. It's going to be a good move for him and the club. I thought there were some really good signs from him. He will get better week after week in the New Jersey.
Saturday afternoon, it was a lopsided match according to the bookies, but the outsiders in the end getting the chocolates 10-8. The Tigers beating the Roosters. Both sides lost their 5-8s pre-match. Luke Keary gone for the Roosters, Josh Reynolds gone for the Tigers. But how did the Tigers win this match? And you still got the likes of Tedesco and Cooper Cronk in that Roosters team, Pete.
They were resilient. Their problem in previous seasons have been the defence and a lack of ability to absorb pressure. To do well in the NRL, you've got to be able to defend 1, 2, 3 sets in a row. And they did that against a quality Roosters outfit. So defensively they were great, but they also went in with a really good plan. The Roosters are great at dominating. They've got such a big pack and they love to gang tackle, slow the ball down, dominate that area. But from the opening moments of this game, it was clear that the West Tigers were prepared to offload and get some second phase play going. So you can't be not dominated. And Ivan Masters was probably the best player early on. All of these three incidents we're showing here is him getting the ball away, being gang tackled, but all of a sudden a teammate is getting tackled 15 or 20 metres upfield, and that made things difficult for the Roosters. And Benji Marshall, he revelled in the going. So it was a really good ploy from Ivan Cleary not to allow his team to be put on the back foot, and the offloading in this game on their behalf was key to their victory.
Can they back it up against the Storm in Melbourne, the Tigers, this coming weekend?
They can back up the performance. I don't know if they can travel and beat Melbourne at home. That's probably the toughest assignment in the NRL competition. But if they come out and play like that, you know, they're not going to beat themselves. And defensively, that was the big thing. You know, they showed a lot of desire and a lot of understanding in relation to how to defend. So Cooper Cronk he came up with a polished display, but the West Tigers knew that Cooper Cronk's main play, his favourite play, his chief play, is to go short. He will go second man to Tedesco, but he likes to go short. So they were up and in the face, and they never dropped off that outside support player at all during the whole afternoon. So they were really well coached coming into this game. The Roosters, I don't know if they lost too many admirers. They're only going to get better. Boyd Cordner started off the bench. That was a little bit of a surprise, but maybe the fact that he didn't play a lot of trial football. So, you know, they'll get better. Cronk was good. Tedesco did drop the ball with the line wide open. That was a bit of a blight on his game. But, yeah, the Roosters are still going to be a top 4, top 6 side.
The doubleheader in Perth, the early game was the Warriors. They were outsiders against the Rabbitohs, but ended up coming up trumps 32 points to 20. Isaac Luke, you've spoken so much about him in the off-season, saying you want to see him back to that premiership-winning form that he had with South, and there was a glimmer of it and clearly helped his team to a win. I
think it was more than a glimmer. You know, the one thing that everyone's saying out of this game is how fit the Warriors looked, and Isaac Luke looked in as good a condition as we've seen him in a number of seasons. For Tuivasa-Sheck and for Sean Johnson to play well and be on the front foot, they need to see more of this. And we haven't in the last couple of seasons. Isaac Luke controlling things from dummy half, getting the side going forward. We know that they're an athletic side, the Warriors always have been, but they've got a great skill level. But you've got to have time and space to take advantage of that, and Isaac Luke is the man to provide that, and he did so beautifully in this first game. I'm not getting carried away. One swallow doesn't make a summer.
The tipster's nightmare, though, aren't they, the Warriors?
They were very good, but they have to maintain, because the one thing they have lacked for a long time now is consistency.
There was a moment before the half-time break that you believe was a key turning point for them?
No doubt about that. And this is South Sydney looking as though they'd scored a try. It's 16-10 at this moment. And this is a try. It's ruled a forward pass, the final pass to Jennings to score in the corner. Now have a look at this one. I don't know if my eyes are going. I've got a little bit. That's not forward. So that was denied, and instead of it being 16-14 or 16-all, 6 tackles later, Sean Johnson puts this at the feet of David Fusitu'a, who picks it up magnificently to score the try. So instead of a 16-all or a 16-14 scoreline, it was 20-10 at half time. Now, you've got to be able to defend bad calls, but that was a big moment, big minute and a half in that game, and it certainly didn't help South Sydney's cause.
Big tick of approval for the Sean Johnson-Blake Green combination as well?
Yeah, Blake Green looked great, and Tohu Harris as well. You know, they need those kind of experienced players that when things maybe start to get away from the game plan, to some cool heads to get them back in. Very interesting to note, after tries were scored by the Warriors, they got in a group and they all did deep breathing together. There was nothing said. They just breathed deeply together. It's keep an eye out for it, because I've never seen it before, and I guess that's what it was, and it obviously worked.
Might have to working at the commentary team half-time, and just wouldn't that be a sight? The second match of the doubleheader, the Bulldogs and the Storm. Melbourne 36 points to 18. Looks lopsided on paper. Was anything but for the majority of the match, though, Pete. But Cameron Munster, the star for a Melbourne side that was without Billy Slater. Yeah, the scoreline isn't a reflection of how close this was, but it also shows what Melbourne are capable of. 18, they scored nearly 40 points, and they win by 18, yet we're saying how good Canterbury were. And Canterbury were much better.
The inclusion of Kieran Foran was profound. They got away to that good start that we just saw. This was the biggest moment of the game. It's 24-18, and a sparkling attacking effort there from Canterbury is snuffed out by a close quarters intercept from Josh Adokar for his second try. That was big in relation to the momentum of the game and also the score line. And then the other winger, the icing on the cake, Vunivalu. I think they got 43 tries between them last year. They got another 3 between them, the two wingers. So great strike out wide. Cameron Munster was the star. When Billy comes back, he'll step into the number 6 jersey, and we know he'll have just as big an effect because he's a quality young player. Sunday afternoon at Panthers Stadium, packed house, hot weather, but a beautiful cloudless day. Mother Nature putting on a bit of a show, Pete. She did indeed. And then the Panthers did. An amazing comeback against an Eel side that looked sharp very early on. Another match where there was a couple of crucial moments where things really turned the victors' way. Yeah, I'm going to have to do some deep breathing as we go into this one as well. They look great, Parramatta, on the back of plenty of possession, but just before half-time, Wonga Blake scores a try. So instead of being 14-0, it was 14-6. And an 8-point margin with the mountain of possession and field position Parramatta had was a very skinny lead. But they didn't come out of the sheds in the second half, Parramatta. And there was an early mistake where Kane Evans, the new recruit, takes the football forward and he tries to offload to Sui Matangi. Now, that's not the play early in the second half that you want to come up with. Third tackle, 30 metres out from your own, well, 40 metres out it shows there. And they never recovered. Mentally, they were very poor, and that translates to physically not being able to back it up. So congratulations to a Penrith team who early in the game looked to be out of it. Mitchell Moses was great. He ended up spending 20 minutes on the sideline, 10 in the HIA and 10 minutes for a professional foul. By that time, probably the damage had been done, but it was a really good performance from Penrith to overcome an ordinary start. And in the end, they were just flowing. Nathan Cleary was great, took the line on plenty of occasions. The big men were a difference. Wonga Blake was hard to handle, and Viliame Kikau was tremendous in the second half. He is a beast. 118 kilos. And Parramatta couldn't handle him. He was named in the run-on side, I think, and came off the bench and had a fantastic influence on the game. But really good performance, big crowd up there, local derby, bragging rights to Penrith. They meet again in a month. What's your report card on Jared Hayne? The comeback for the Eels, his 200th match, was playing in the centres, but he was moving around a bit. Yeah, they came up with a nice attacking ploy when they got football in good position early in the game. They actually moved Bevan French onto the right wing, Josh Hoffman into the centres, and Jared Hayne attacking from fullback. I liked that. I thought it was a good formation, and then when they were coming out, they'd slot back into the positions that they were named. I thought he was good, Jared Hayne. I thought defensively he was strong. The thing about Jared is playing in the centres, and it's a little bit like Greg Inglis, they don't get as much football, and they probably don't get as much quality football as you get playing in the number 1 jersey, where you can pick and choose, you've got a lot more space. So, there'll be a decision for Coach Brad Arthur to make at some stage as to whether he's getting enough out of Jared Hayne or whether there's more swapping that goes on during the 80 minutes. And there was a big comeback for a victory in that match, and then in the final game of the round was on the Gold Coast, the Titans and young Ash Taylor spearheading an amazing comeback against the Raiders side that was 18 points up. Well, Garth Brennan, congratulations. He was the only rookie coach out of 3 this weekend to get a win in his first game. At 18-0 after 12 minutes, I don't think his old job of being in the police force had ever looked more attractive. But, boy, did they turn it around. Got some points before half-time, and Ash Taylor was superb. And this is the final try. Oh, no, sorry, this is an earlier try, but the final try looked very similar to that, where Ash Taylor, well, he had his hands in everything. He got his side back into it against the Canberra Raiders side who, look, they're in a position, obviously, to win this game, as they were on so many occasions last year. They'd be doing Ricky Stewart's head in, I would imagine, because they put themselves in a winning position, but they just don't go on with it. I had them in my top 8. They're probably the one team I have to reconsider. That's the winning try there. Under the post, the conversion was successful, and after 18-0 down, rookie coach, Gold Coast Titans, who were at the bottom of the ladder alongside Newcastle last year. You take that. Got the money. What a weekend. It was a cracking round. And Pete, great wrapping it up with you. Good to see you, James. We'll do it again. You too. We certainly will. Sterlo's wrap up for round 1 of the National Rugby League. We'll be back each and every Monday, of course. We will see you Thursday night, Shark Park, Cronulla, take on arch rival St George Illawarra.